You're standing in front of the mirror, same as every morning. Hot water, foam, that scraping sound against your jaw. 3 minutes, maybe 4. You rinse, you look up, and there's your face. Clean, done. You won't think about it again all day. Here's what you actually just did. You have roughly the same number of hair follicles as a chimpanzee, the same number. But a chimp is a walking fur coat. And you are, well, not. Except for one patch. One stubborn patch that keeps coming back every day of your adult life, no matter how many times you erase it. Your body threw away the fur everywhere else. It refused to let go of that. And that patch is not really hair. It's a message with a very specific meaning, aimed at a very specific audience. And it is almost certainly not the audience you think. This morning, you deleted it without ever reading it. Let's start with the bigger mystery, because you can't explain the beard until you explain the disappearance. Somewhere between 2 and 3 million years ago, our ancestors started losing body hair almost everywhere, not thinning it, losing it. And think about how strange that is. Every other primate alive today kept theirs. Every single one. Gorillas, chimps, orangutans, monkeys in forests you'll never visit. All furry. And then there's us. Standing in the middle of the family photo, naked, like we lost a bet. We are the outlier. And nature does not produce an outlier that dramatic by accident. The leading answer comes down to one thing: heat. Anthropologist Nina Jablonski has spent decades on this, and her work points at what our ancestors had started doing for a living. They weren't ambush hunters. They were endurance hunters. The plan was not to jump on the animal. The plan was to follow it, for hours, under an open African sun, until the animal's own body cooked it from the inside, and it simply stopped. You've felt a tiny version of this, walking uphill on a hot day, shirt stuck to your back, your head starting to feel loud, and you'd trade anything for shade. Now stretch that across 6 hours, with lunch running away from you. Because heat kills faster than hunger. Hunger takes weeks. Heat takes an afternoon. So, the body made a trade. It gave up the coat and doubled down on sweat. You have more sweat glands per square inch of skin than almost any mammal alive. Millions of them. But sweat only cools you when it evaporates, and fur traps it against the skin before it can. Lose the fur, and you stop being an animal with a heat problem. You become a machine with a radiator. Good story. Except, here's the question that should be bothering you. Nobody was there. There are no soft tissues left. Hair doesn't fossilize across millions of years. So how could anyone possibly know when a furry ape stopped being furry? The answer is the strangest evidence in this entire field. We worked it out from lice. Follow this because it's brilliant. Lice are picky. A louse species evolves to grip one specific kind of hair on one specific animal, and it can't survive anywhere else. Which makes lice a fossil record that is still alive, and still itching. Humans carry 2 completely different kinds. The one in your hair is a cousin of the chimpanzee's louse, exactly what you'd expect from a shared ancestor. But the other one, the one that lives lower down, isn't related to that at all. Its closest relative lives on gorillas. David Reed at the Florida Museum of Natural History traced the split, and the timing refuses to line up. Humans and gorillas parted ways around 7 million years ago. But those 2 lice only separated about 3 million years ago, millions of years later, which means the louse didn't inherit us. It jumped to us, probably from butchering gorillas or sleeping where gorillas had slept, which is a wonderfully grim mental image for a creature that has no idea it's in a documentary. And here is why that matters. A parasite can only move in if there's an empty room waiting. For a gorilla louse to settle on a human and become its own species, human hair had to already be broken into islands, bare skin in between, separate territories with no bridge. So, 3 million years ago, the fur was already gone. We weren't guessing. Our parasites filed the paperwork, which brings us back to the patch that survived. Every hair your body kept has a job. Your scalp shields your skull from the sun. Your eyebrows and lashes catch sweat and dust before it reaches your eyes. All of it fits the story. And then there's the jaw. A beard doesn't help you run. It doesn't help you cool. It does the exact opposite. It sits across your throat and cheeks, right on top of blood vessels running close to the surface, holding heat exactly where you're trying to dump it. If the rule was lose the fur or die, the beard is a rule breaker standing right there on your face. Charles Darwin hit this same wall in 1871. He couldn't work out why a trait with no survival value would appear so reliably in men across the entire planet. His answer was that natural selection wasn't doing this. Sexual selection was. A trait that survived not because it kept you alive, but because it got you chosen. Women liked it. So it stayed. That was the answer for 150 years. And when researchers finally tested it properly, that answer mostly fell apart. Evolutionary researcher Barnaby Dixon has run study after study, showing people the same men photographed clean-shaven, at 5 days of growth, at 10 days, and with a full beard. If Darwin were right, the full beard should win. It doesn't. Stubble tends to win on attractiveness, not the beard, the half-finished one. But the full beard dominates a completely different scoreboard. Rate those same faces for dominance, for maturity, for how badly you would not want to argue with this man, and the beard climbs straight to the top. So, read that again, slowly. The thing on your face was never really built to attract women. It was built to warn men. And suddenly, the biology fits. Facial hair is driven by testosterone and by androgen receptors packed into the skin of the jaw and chin. It's hormone activity happening invisibly inside a man, pushed to the surface where strangers can see it. Your ancestors couldn't run a blood test. They couldn't ask for a name. But they could look at a face and get a rough read in half a second before a single word was spoken. Picture that half second. One man walks out of the tree line toward a fire that isn't his. Nobody knows him. Nobody speaks his language. 10 people look up at once, and in the time it takes them to decide whether to reach for a stone, the only information they have is what's growing on his face. That's the whole job. That's why it's still there. And here's the part almost nobody realizes. This isn't only a man's story. The follicles on the jaw are on almost every human face, women included. The same equipment sitting in the same skin. What differs is the hormone level, which decides whether each follicle produces fine, near-invisible hair or thick, dark hair. Everyone was handed the sign. Testosterone is just the switch that turns the lights on. So, look at what that leaves you with. 2 forces, 1 body, opposite directions. One stripped the hair off almost all of you, because out in the sun, hair was a threat to your life. The other protected one small patch, because on that one patch, hair wasn't fighting your biology. It was announcing it. Almost everything on your body is there to keep you alive. Your skin, your sweat, your lashes, your bones. All engineering. The beard is one of the very few parts of you that exists mainly to be looked at. It isn't a tool, it's a sign, built out of protein and hung on the front of your head. Long before writing, before language was any good, before you could say a word about who you were, your face was already saying it, loudly, every day, to everyone who looked. Which brings us back to the mirror. You wipe that message off most mornings without a thought. A little foam, a few strokes, and a signal that took millions of years to write is gone in under 3 minutes. Other men do the opposite, spending real money and real effort growing out and shaping something their ancestors were never given a choice about. We are the only animal on Earth that pays to remove its own hair and then pays more to get it back. But understand what you're doing. You're not managing hair. You are editing a message your body has been broadcasting since before your species could speak. Your ancestors never got to choose what their face said about them. You do. Every single morning, usually before you're even awake enough to notice.